Horror, one of our favourite movie genres. 2022 was a fantastic year for horror, both Asian and Western. However, traditionally horror movies have not been big money earners at the box office. It's unfortunate that when most people think of Asian horror, they still think of the powerhouse J-horror movies of the early 2000s and the more recent Korean titles of the mid-2010s. But as you'll see on this list, one Asian country completely dominates Asian horror, and if you aren't watching their films, you're missing out big time. 12 titles in this top 20 list are from this country. Yes, this is a top 20 list of the highest grossing 2022 Asian horror movies at the box office. Now this was a little bit tricky to create, and we're 99% certain this is completely accurate. However, it's worth noting that all totals have been converted to US dollars, which makes the top two positions very impressive when you consider movie ticket prices in that country. And this also includes total worldwide box office, as a lot of Asian films release in multiple territories. Let's get started. Let's check out 2022's top 20 highest grossing Asian horror films. You're going to hear the word Indonesia a lot in this video, and their first entry in this list is the comedy horror film Mumun. Using the popular pocong trope, this comedy horror is about a woman called Mumun who dies in a horrible accident and is buried. But the man responsible for her burial forgets to untie her shroud rope, so Mumun, as a pocong, comes back to life to get someone to untie the rope for her. Yeah, sounds kinda silly, but comedy horrors are always welcomed. Released in September, the return on this one is modest, and the user ratings seem to be positive. Vietnamese horror is a unique genre on its own. Thanks to heavy government censorship, their horror movies tend to be modified from their original versions and thus lose some of their impact. This movie comes courtesy of director Lee Van Kiet, who directed the awesome action flick Fury in 2019 and the American shark film The Requin from 2022 starring Alicia Silverstone. Featuring two actors from Kumanthong, Vietnam's best horror film in a long time. This movie is about a father and his two daughters who move back to his ancestral home where the two girls start to experience night terrors. With the help of a woman who claims to be a psychologist, the truth behind the terrors are revealed. This movie is rather average. It's not bad, it's just not that good, but it does have some chilling moments. We'd still recommend checking it out, but be forewarned. We bet you all thought this movie was probably going to be top 5, right? Well, Japan would disagree with you. However, to be fair to the film, it hasn't completed its international Asian run yet, with releases in Singapore, Taiwan and Hong Kong set for 2023, so the total for this film will change in the future. Eschewing its traditional horror feeling for a more comedy vibe, Sadako DX pushes the titular character to the side, as this movie is more of an exploration of the hysteria around the pandemic and the vaccine, with the long-haired Yuri only making brief appearances throughout the film. Honestly, this isn't a bad film at all. There's a lot of fun to be had here, if you can get over the fact that it's really only using the Sadako name for the title, with the old 7-day rule now replaced with a 24-hour deadline. Sadako fans will hate this film, but we think it deserves a chance, and it definitely doesn't deserve all the negative press it seems to have received. To us, this has always been a strange series of comedy horror movies from Thailand. It's even more surprising to us that there are 3 movies in the series, when we thought the first movie was hard enough to get through. The third movie, though, is an utter chore. By now, Faust, Balloon and the other guy are senior monks at their monastery, and they're now also very popular in the music circuit. They return to their monastery when Odd needs to complete his ritual when they discover that an ankle bracelet that's been dug up has unleashed a demonic spirit. Everything we didn't like about the first 2 movies is back with a vengeance in this film. However, to be fair, there were some genuinely funny moments, and the 3 guys can, at times, be really endearing and funny. It's just for the rest of the time they aren't. Watch this one if you're a fan of the series, otherwise just steer well clear. The first of 4 movies in a row we haven't seen is this drama horror from Indonesia that translates to The Womb. This film is about a poor, pregnant woman who accepts the generosity of a wealthy couple who take her and her unborn baby in. But as you can imagine, the couple has some sinister motives. Not exactly an original plot, not even for Indonesian cinema. This one released mid-October and seems to have done alright for itself, with some rather positive user ratings as well. Also known as It's in the Woods, is Japan's second entry in the top 20 list, released at the end of September and directed by none other than Hideo Nakata, the man behind the Ring films, Dark Water, and 2019's Sadako flick. This movie sounds kinda cool, and we'll be able to confirm that when we finally get a chance to watch it. Set in an actual forest, which is interesting because what other kind of forests are there? That's supposedly full of supernatural phenomenon. This movie is classed as a next-gen horror flick, whatever that means, and it includes a bunch of witness statements from people who experienced these supernatural events. Rather than relying on the synopsis, we think we should just watch this one when it's more widely available. Village horror is one of the more popular elements that's explored in Indonesian horror films, and this is one of them. Released in early October, this is about a man who is forced to sell his family home that's been abandoned for 20 years. Before selling the house, the man and his pregnant wife move into it so they can experience life there, but they start to do things that are considered prohibited. Hence the title of the film, which roughly translates to prohibition or taboo. These prohibited things they do end up releasing spirits that threaten their lives. Seems moody, seems atmospheric, but we're not too sure how good this one actually is. Translated as Sacred 2, this Monty Tiwa directed film, the man who wrote the original Pocong movie back in 2006, which was banned in Indonesia. And if you want to know more information about that film, you can check out our video on banned Asian horror films. This is a sequel to his 2009 original, continuing on the found footage style from the first film, and one of two found footage movies on this list. Like the first movie, this one follows a group of filmmakers, in this case, students making a documentary and a duo of YouTubers who make horror content. They meet a mysterious woman called Yute, and things turn to hell from there. One of the cool things about this film is that the characters all use their real names, just like in the first film. Unfortunately, we haven't seen either film, but we really should. It's a shame this is the highest earning Vietnamese film on the list, as this film is an absolute shocker. It doesn't help that it's one of our most hated horror genres, the anthology. Yep, three tales woven together under the pretense of a group of friends telling scary stories to each other when the power goes out in their apartment. The stories themselves aren't too bad, especially the first one about a singer who uses up-and-coming talent to prolong her career, but it's let down by average acting, poor effects, and the over-reliance on jump scares than genuine horror. Then again, we really detest anthology films, so maybe it is good, and we just didn't give it a chance. When we reviewed this movie earlier in 2022, we claimed this was the best movie in director Takashi Shimizu's trilogy of Village of Horror films, and we still stand by that claim. Not just because out of the three movies this is the best one, but also because this is actually a pretty decent horror film. Released early in 2022, this movie follows a girl called Canon who is shown a viral video featuring a girl who looks exactly like her. That girl is mysteriously missing after visiting a haunted location where she is wearing an ox-headed mask. Alongside a boy with a massive crush on her, she visits the village where the girl was from, only to discover some pretty dark secrets about herself and her family. If you didn't like Suicide Forest Village or Howling Village, then we don't blame you for not wanting to watch this one, but give it a shot and trust us, it's a much better film than those two. Released really late in the year, December to be precise, this movie was a rather modest hit in the Indonesian box office. We're going to put it down to the fact that it stars Akmini Haq, who has been in a lot of horror flicks, including the #1 title on this list. Unfortunately, we haven't seen this film, but the trailer has sold us on it. Anyone who can do the backwards crab walk gets our attention pretty quickly. And let's be honest, this movie sounds pretty decent too. A high-performing student is tasked with taking care of a new student who's a bit of a rebel. After they perform a Muslim ritual, two jinns, who take the appearance of the two girls, appear and force them to commit unimaginable sins. That sounds pretty damn good to us. The original Kuntilanak movie from 2006 is one of our favourite Indonesian horror films. Translating to The Chanting, the original trilogy of films were later remade in 2018 as completely fresh stories, with nothing relating back to the original other than the mirror. Thus, this part 3 is completely different to the original part 3 from 2008. Now that wasn't a great film to start with, and apparently this one isn't that great either. So far, we've avoided the Kuntilanak remakes because why would you improve on a movie that was already pretty damn good? The thing is, the filmmakers couldn't, and this trilogy seems more silly and fantastical than the original movies. It's a hard pass from us, but it seems the Indonesians will still head to the cinema to watch these. You'd expect a Kimo Stamboel film to do well, right? One half of the Mo brothers, alongside Timo Cantano. He is solo for this flick, which is about a family who's on vacation who are terrorized by a supernatural force. Released in September, the total is rather modest on this one. It doesn't seem as full on as a normal Kimo film, but we haven't had a chance to check this one out yet. This title appears to be a spin-off of the Jae Kung series, with no connection to the previous two films. However, since we haven't seen it, we can't verify that. Unfortunately, yet another film we haven't seen, so we can't comment too much about this one, but holy hell does the trailer in the background look good. That is, if we're allowed to show the trailer, and not just a series of stills from it. However, if the trailer is running, wow, does this one look good. The synopsis says it's about a clergyman, or ustaz as they're known in the Muslim faith, who travels back to his old boarding school where the community is experiencing supernatural disturbances. He hopes this will help him regain his faith and overcome the death of his son. It's been out since August, so hopefully it's picked up soon for international release on a streaming service we have access to. A very rare slasher entry comes courtesy of yet another Indonesian title, this time the fourth movie in the Doll franchise. Yes, even though this is called The Doll 3, there was a spin-off title, making this one the fourth movie. Pure slasher fun, this movie does not take itself seriously, and that's what makes it fun to watch. A woman lives with her young brother after the death of their parents. Upon being engaged, her fiancé buys her brother the latest, hottest toy, a Bobby doll. But after the boy's tragic suicide, she takes the doll to a shaman where his soul is reborn inside it. However, jealousy takes over and Bobby wants to make sure his sister is his and his alone. Yeah, shades of Chucky. So what? This movie uses the Chucky playbook and adds its own unique Indonesianness to it. It's probably not the type of film you'd expect from there, but that's what makes it all the better to watch. We'd recommend this one for a bit of mindless fun. Breaking a run of 5 Indonesian movies in a row is this film that we liked. We really liked. There is something very unique about this film that most people seem to have missed, and that was that the movie's hook was the audience's involvement. Presented in that annoying point of view, found footage style format where half the shots are shoehorned in and make very little sense, the movie is about a woman and her daughter who she believes is cursed by an evil spirit. A lot of people mistake the whole what's in the tunnel bit as the most important part of the film. It's not. It's just a ruse from the filmmaker and it's done really well. The whole point of the movie is the main character is trying to pass the curse to the audience to lift it from her daughter. Cleverly done fourth wall breaking. This film was a mega hit thanks to Netflix, but it also means that its theatrical run was very limited after Netflix purchased the rights. Thus, this film actually could have been higher on this list had that not have happened. A very divisive title from one of the current fathers of Indonesian horror cinema, Kimo Stamboel. His second movie on this list, and another where he went alone without his usual partner in crime, Timo Cantano. This movie has a terrific atmosphere and some gory moments, but not much else. A partially blind girl who can see spirits and her brother stay with some friends in a converted old folks home that used to be the homestead of a Dutch family. Specifically, a woman called Ivana, who was brutally murdered by Japanese soldiers during their invasion of Indonesia pre-World War II. It kinda made no sense to us that Ivana was getting her revenge on elderly Indonesian people than the Japanese who killed her. But hey, we didn't write the movie, we just watched it and thought it was just above average. If you're looking for a great Indonesian horror film to watch, then you really need to check out number 2 on this list. Not content with letting Indonesia have all the fun in this list is this surprise Japanese horror thriller hit that released 2 weeks before Sadako DX but completely dominated it in the box office. Roughly translating to Find My Body, Karada Sagashi is about a high school girl and a group of her friends who need to keep repeating the same night over and over again until they can find all the body parts of a dismembered girl that's been hidden around their campus, all while a mysterious character called the Red Man hunts them down. If he gets them, they die and are forced to come back again the next night. It sounds like a fun movie, and it seemed that the Japanese audience agree. Unfortunately, we haven't seen this film yet, but we would really, really like to. What a shame this movie wasn't in the top position, as it is easily the best Asian horror movie of 2022. An incredible follow-up to Joko Anwar's 2017 reimagining of the 1980s classic Indonesian horror Satan Slaves sees Rini and her family move to a rundown apartment complex only to find they're still being haunted by the spirit that consumed their mother. The movie is a slow burn, and that's what makes it such a joy to watch. The tension is built superbly, solidifying our opinion that Anwar is a master in his craft, with his only downside being his rather complex way of explaining things at the end of his films. It was an issue with Impetigore and The Forbidden Door, and it's an issue here, but it doesn't take away from what is easily the best Asian horror movie of 2022 and well deserving of all the money it made. If only it had made just a little bit more to be in the top position. A bit of a disappointing end to this list, it must be said, but this is not a best of list. Thus, we have to go on the numbers, and they didn't lie with the top grossing film of the year. Just to complete Indonesia's domination of this list, the heavily delayed KKN Di Densa Penari, which translates to In the Dancer's Village, with KKN being a community service program that students are required to do to pass their schooling. Available in two versions, a heavily edited version that was released theatrically in Indonesia and a more sexier version that was released online and internationally. This movie is about 6 students who go to a village to complete their KKN, where they plan to help the area regrow crops and improve the irrigation system. However, there's a jinn in the village that tempts some of the students into a sexual liaison in a forbidden location, breaking the rules of the village and causing chaos for the others. Delayed because of the pandemic, when it was finally released, it was a mega hit, with its sequel called KKN Di Densa Penari Louis Dowo Louis Medeni already theatrically released just before the end of 2022, so expect to see it on next year's list. Our opinion was that this movie just missed the mark. It had a lot of potential, but knowledge of the folklore it's based on, which is apparently a true story, is almost a must to be able to fully enjoy this one. Thank you for watching 2022's top 20 highest grossing Asian horror movies at the box office. Which of these movies have you seen, and what did you think of them? Which ones do you want to see, and why? We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please press the like button and consider subscribing to support our channel. We'll see you next time.